Welcome to Deep Drinks Podcast, where the drinks are deep and the conversations are deeper. Hey everyone, welcome to Deep Drinks Podcast. Today we have a very special episode because we're going to be having a little bit of a back and forth, a little bit of a discussion / debate about morality, and we have TJump with us. Before we get started, we're going to announce a few quick things. So for those listening to the podcast in the future, this episode was live. If you want to join in the conversation, go to youtube.com/deepdrinks and you can join the conversation. You can ask some questions and it'll all be a great time. If you haven't already, you can download the podcast to listen on your way to work. If you go to the links in the description, it's on Spotify, Apple Music, Google. It's all there, all ready to go. It is a hoot and a half. And so you can see all the episodes we've had in the past. We've had Dr. Josh on talking about the Old Testament. We've had an ex-Mormon, Alyssa Whitbeck-Alexander, who is just an amazing story and just about her deconversion from Mormonism. So if that's something that you find interesting, jump into it and have a listen. And the last thing I want to mention is we are growing quickly in subscribers. So as you know, you may not know, but if we are doing a charity stream when we get to 1,000 subscribers. So I recently moved Deep Drinks to its own channel and put all the old episodes up, and we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, because of 1,000 subscribers I can start getting like chat donations and things like that, and I'll be doing a 6-hour live stream to try and give some money towards charity, and it's just a cool goal to kind of work towards. So as you can see, we're moving up. So if you like content like this, make sure you hit subscribe. I think it's like something like 80%, here we go, 80%, 4% of people watching are not subscribed. So make sure you hit the subscribe button if you want to support me, you want to support charity, you want to support the channel. That would be absolutely awesome. So with that said, I'm going to introduce our guest, who is a bit of a spicy one, who has some really interesting conversations. So his name is TJump. TJump he's known by, and he's an atheist philosopher who hosts conversations and debates with professors, academics, apologists, and everything in between. Tom regularly engages in topics from biology and physics, religion, and morality, with a few flat Earth debates peppered in there. He's not a flat earther, though. He opposes the flat earthers. Tom subscribes to objective morality as opposed to subjective morality. So he views morality as an undiscovered law of nature that is true whether or not people believe in it. He's got his own theory on objective morality called you call the involuntary imposition of will, and he's co-authoring a book on the very subject that he's going to get published and peer-reviewed when it finally comes out. But he's working on that at the moment. So with that said, I'd like to welcome TJump.
So,
hey man,
how's it going?
How you doing?
All right.
You got the iconic chair, the lazy boy, and you just chill, ready to go, ready to jump into this conversation about morality.
Sure.
But what are we drinking, TJump?
Cherry Pepsi. So
that's the golden liquid. Unfortunately, in Australia, we can't get cherry Pepsi. At least I couldn't find anywhere. I had to go to a specialty store and spend $4.50 on one can of cherry Coke. So I thought that is as close as I can get. So that's what we're going to do it. And I think this is the first time I've ever had a cherry flavored Coke or Pepsi drink. So I'll be doing a review as we go. But before we dive into morality, I just wanted to, if you could give a quick introduction to how you actually got interested in such topics. So why are you interested in morality? Why are you interested in these things?
Well, I wrote an epistemology, theory of knowledge, and was contrasting it to theism and trying to see if the arguments better indicated a natural hypothesis to a theistic hypothesis. And I came to the moral one. And so I researched it just like I did the other ones, and was wondering if it had any alternatives to theism, because if you grow up in a predominantly Christian society, you're not taught about alternative views of objective morality. You really think God's the only option. And then when you start researching into the academic side, the philosophers don't agree. There are lots of alternatives to God-based morality. In fact, a God-based morality isn't objective, and the ones that are Platonic objects, a priori abstracts, undiscovered laws of physics. Those kinds of things are objective, whereas God's opinion is not objective. And so understanding what objective morality could be, that the naturalistic hypotheses are better than the theistic ones, and the theistic one isn't particularly good at all, is what got me into the topic.
So I can imagine some of my Muslim friends and Christian friends are like they're powdering their fingertips at the moment, getting ready to type some objections to what you just said there. What do you mean by God's opinion is not objective? How can that be the case? If
Well,
God was real,
what? Well, objective means independent, true, independent of opinion. So if it's true because God says so, that's dependent on an opinion. So in order for it to be objective, it can't be contingent on a mind, because if it's contingent on a mind, that's the opposite of objective. It's subjective.
But wouldn't okay. But would Christians and Muslims, would theists say that God has a quote unquote mind, like as we perceive it as a mind?
Yes, that's like one of the required properties, is that he has a mind. Because if he doesn't, then there's no more God. It's just pantheism, just nature. So it doesn't matter if the mind is like our mind. If it's contingent on a mind of any kind, subjective.
Interesting. Okay, interesting. Okay, and so you grew up a Christian, is that right?
Yep.
And you're not a Christian now. How did that happen?
I had major depression my entire life. None of my prayers were answered, and so I lost the ability to believe in a all-powerful Sky Daddy who actually cared about me.
Okay, that's a very quick, like usually that's a 2-hour conversation on this channel where, but you just summed it up real quick. I like that. Sky Daddy, that's great. And so how did you first start like posting videos and things like that?
I was interviewing, or I invited out professors for coffee and just chatting with them to test my knowledge in philosophy. And I would record the conversations on my phone and just upload it for convenience. And people started to watch. That's how. So it's kind of happened.
Yeah, right. Awesome. I assume that you didn't bring in the lazy boy back then. That was a new edition, right?
I was born with it.
That's so good. I love that on your Discord too. You have like little stickers and merch and stuff like of the chair. That's pretty funny.
That's right. Buy TJump merch. Everyone should go right now and just buy TJump.
Yeah, do it. Go buy TJump merch. Do it. 100%. So I thought we could jump straight into morality and let's just have a discussion with it, because I disagree with your perspective, and I think that's where. Okay, well, that's where interesting discussions. This is where interesting discussions lie, right? We can have a civil discourse about it. But I think so. I probably disagree, but it's probably I don't actually know your full theory. So could you lay it out to me? Like, why do you believe that morals are objective?
Yeah, so there's a pattern in moral intuition. Moral progress is what we call it. We see there's a pattern that it changes in a very consistent direction over time. And I think that pattern is going to hold true to all conscious things in the universe, not just humans. And they're also going to follow this pattern. And if they all follow the same pattern, then it's likely indicative of something more than just a social construct. It can't just be a social construct if every society is doing it. And so there's likely going to be some consistency to this pattern, and it will lead somewhere. It has an end point. And there's a pattern to it. It's reasonable to think that this is representative of some fact of reality that we just don't understand yet. And that's about it.
Okay. So you said there that like, societies follow these laws. Can you give me like an example of this?
Well, so the
law, consistency.
Consistency with the law is like, as you increase in technological advancement and intellectual acuity, more involuntary impositions of will are seen as immoral. That's the pattern. So it means as you gain in technology and there are less things you have to do that are bad, you start to see those things as immoral. So like veganism is an example today. As we get to the point where we're like at Star Trek and we can just print food, it will be seen, the majority of people will see eating animals as immoral. And same thing applied to slavery, women's rights, LGBT rights. As we got to the point in society where these things were no longer justified because of some means to need certain kinds of hierarchies in order to have society function, then they started to be seen as immoral. And so the pattern's going to continue. As we gain technologically, more things that we currently see as necessary will be seen as immoral, like jails will be seen as immoral, stoplights will be seen as immoral. any unnecessary imposition of will be seen as immoral once we get to the technological stage where it is no longer justified to impose it on anybody.
Okay, I can understand where you're coming from there. So I'm a vegetarian or vegan. I say vegetarian just because, you know, my work still buys leather shoes and shit like that.
I like
But
bacon.
for me, yeah, okay. So you're immoral. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, that's exactly right. I
No.
am immoral. I grant that. So I understand that veganism and vegetarianism is the moral position, and I choose to eat cheeseburgers and bacon and pizza. So I'm immoral. That is correct.
Yeah, not to get off on a well, let's get off on it later, but like not to get off on that, but like you would never accept that argument for someone who just loved raping babies, right? You know, we wouldn't be like, well, you know, I know it's immoral, but I just love raping babies. You'd be like, no, you should stop that, you piece of shit, right?
Yeah, but that's the same thing. So like, if someone was a murderer or something, and he says I'm immoral, I'd like, you're right. Yes, you are immoral. I mean, there's nothing. I'm not disagreeing. I'm agreeing with him. He's right. That is a correct statement. So
Okay.
I mean, there's not really saying that there's this imperative to try to get him to stop or something isn't a difference there. Those aren't like different positions. You can say, yes, I agree. You are factually correct when you say you're immoral. I would agree with you.
But I'm going to, it's like, okay. Yeah. So just to go back to what you were saying with the, you know, as society gets more civilized, as we start to do things. So I always use the example of like, people always come to me and say like, oh, would you eat a pig on a desert island or whatever, right? And my response is usually the same. Would I eat a pig on a desert island if I had to? Well, I'd probably eat whatever the pig was eating. But let's say like hypothetically, the pig was dropped in on from a plane with a little like parachute and it landed safely. It couldn't eat anything. It was going to die. I had to kill it to eat it to survive, right? I'd probably do that. I'd probably also drink my own piss, but given a cool glass of refreshing Coke cherry, which is delicious, by the way, I'm choosing the Coke cherry every time, or I'm choosing water every time, right? So under certain circumstances, I agree. We change what we find acceptable in that time. But for me, that points to moral subjectivism, more like that people find it okay in certain instances to do certain things, and okay and not okay in other instances. So so for example, like if I was having dinner with the Queen, right, and like she bring out chicken wings, I'm not picking up those chicken wings and like munching on them with my hands. I'm using a knife and fork, right? Because that's seen as the quote unquote correct thing to do, right? But like sitting around a barbecue with a bunch of my boys and they're all eating their chicken wings, it would almost be the wrong thing to do to pull out a knife and fork, right? Would you agree with that? It's like,
well, I'd say it'd be wrong even in the case of the desert island to eat the pig. It's still immoral. You're still killing a conscious agent. So I think that any time you kill a conscious agent ever for any reason, it's always immoral no matter what. There is no justification whatsoever that will ever make it moral. That's literally contradictory to what a justification is. If you're justifying doing something bad, it can't be good. The justification can't make it good. And so I don't really care about what people disagree on or whether people would do different things in different contexts. Like many people would probably kill baby Hitler, and they find that justified. But that doesn't make it moral. It's not like, therefore, because people would do it, it must be morally good in that case. Like, no. Yeah, moral objective means true, independent of anybody's opinion. So the fact that people would do it really doesn't have any basis or relevance to whether or not something is moral.
Yeah, like the killing the baby Hitler thing, right? It's a consequentialist. Like for those to say people to say that's like a moral thing to do, that's like a consequentialist perspective, right? And then there's like utilitarianism and Kantian perspectives and social contract theory and stuff. Do you subscribe to any of those theories within the objective morality framework?
No, I mean, most of those aren't objective morality. Like consequentialism and utilitarianism are pragmatic models. They don't need to be objective. You can make an objective model out of it, but they're not objective. But yeah, I don't subscribe to any of those now.
Okay. So, all right. Well, okay. So I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. I'm trying to find some hooks for us to go deeper. But so what is morality to you? Because for me, it seems that morality is mostly a pragmatic system we use to organize society. It doesn't exist. I'm kind of like a moral anti-realist. I think people seem to just operate within their own preferences, and people's, as society gets better and bigger or and stuff, we start going, well, now this is not okay, and that's just people operating within their own preferences, and that it makes sense then that, you know, I mentioned Alyssa Whitbeck Alexander. She was a Mormon. When she was deconstructing from her Mormon faith, her and her husband drove to another town. They wore like a disguise to order their first coffee because they thought it was such a bad thing to do to order that coffee, right? They had this moral weight that it was bad to drink this coffee. But we wouldn't say it was bad to drink that coffee because we don't have those same cultural perspectives, cultural religious perspectives, right? So to me, it seems that morality is just like people operating within their own preferences. It's subjective. Or actually, I don't even think morality exists. I just think it's a tool we use. We say for people to operate within their own preferences.
Okay, well, is there a pattern to it? Why is, like, it's not all just coffee? There's a pattern, isn't there? There's like some things are typically seen as immoral in that pattern. Do you think aliens will have a similar pattern?
Well, it depends, right? So like if aliens have a central nervous system, so like if you imagine, if you bring, like, you talk about biology a lot, if you bring things back to like ground roots biology, right? Sticking knife in leg usually produces an uncomfortable feeling for sentient beings, right? Knife leg bad, right? That's like it's like as rudimentary as you can kind of get. So it's like, well, if it produces an uncomfortable feeling because of how we're evolutionarily wired, because knife in leg bad, then you can deduce that we would create a rule. Hey, I don't want you to stab knife in my leg, right? Like, it's like you can see how like everyone would come to the same subjective ideas. What do you think about
that? So you agree there is a pattern that's going to be true?
Yeah,
across species, everywhere in the universe, pretty much.
Or across species, I don't know, but yeah.
Aliens aren't human. They're two species, different species. That's why I said alien.
Well, we don't. Well, I'd have to reject it because we don't have any idea of what aliens would be. We're literally just talking Star Trek at this stage. Like we don't know if aliens exist. We don't know what they will be like. We don't know if they'll be sentient. We don't know what they'll, you know. It might be a nonsensical thing to talk about.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. So, like, if there are aliens that do exist, suppose they're conscious, because if they're not conscious, then they're probably not going to have a view of morality. They're just going to be rocks, which is fine.
Depending on how you define consciousness, but yeah.
I don't know how to define consciousness.
Yeah, let's not go down that.
But if there's conscious, they're probably going to have a system of rules that they feel are better or worse, right or wrong, and it's probably going to have most conscious agents are probably going to have this, and they're all probably going to have the same pattern. Like, don't eat babies is probably going to be a common one throughout most things in the universe. There's probably going to be some central core themes to all of these. And it could be, it's just coincidence. It's just coincidence that they did this because the ones that wanted to eat babies died off. Or it could be that they just didn't have that. For some reason, eating babies was never a positive thing that came about in moral theories. It just didn't happen. And if that's the case, well, why not? If it's just random things happening, and some group of people or an individual develops the desire to eat babies, and that becomes the moral standard in that culture, you would expect that would be possible under the case it was just random, just evolutionary disadvantageous. But I don't think that's the case. It doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like there's some underlying pattern to the way things change, and it's not just cultural. And I think it's probably something more that we just don't understand yet. It seems like a more plausible explanation.
Would you say that culture is objective?
No.
Why?
Because it's just something we made up. It's contingent on us.
It seems to be something that we all gather around the fire. We all
well, objectively exists, but it's not like a feature of the universe. Our culture, you're not going to see in aliens.
Yeah. Well, hang on. Why? Why do you say that? Because like we see culture develop the same over time, right? Like as like certain cultures, like even when people were colonizing like tribal villages, they would use examples of like these people are further behind. That's a different argument. I'm not making that argument, but they would say like, we're more advanced civilization, right? It's like, but they view the people that they're talking to as like still part of a culture. Why is culture
technology
the same?
is objective? So if you're saying culture is synonymous with level of technology, well, yeah, level of technology is objective. We thought we would definitely see that in other aliens. Every alien society is going to have the same progress of technological advancement, probably a different kinds of things, but yes, we can objectively measure the ability to move atoms and forces in the universe, and the more efficient ways to do that are better technologies by definition. So yes, technology is objective.
Technology is, but what about culture?
What culture is just like, I like art, I like this hairstyle. Like, no, that's not objective.
Well, that's how I feel about morality, right? I don't like to get stabbed.
Yeah, but so do you think morality changes for cultures at the same rate that cultural does? Like, does the hairstyle and clothing style have the same level of, I don't know, consistency as morality, or do they change very differently, different rates?
I don't have an answer to that, but I also don't think it's relevant. Like, why does the rates matter?
Well, so one is arbitrary and you can change however you want with no constraints. One, there's constraints, that means you can't change it arbitrarily.
Okay, can you spell it out for me a little bit?
So like science and technology, you can't change arbitrarily. Like, I want a flying car now. Like, it doesn't work that way. You can't just pick something and like it or dislike it. It doesn't work that way. If there is some fact of reality that guides what you can and can't do, like technology and doing science stuff, and you don't get to arbitrarily set the limits to whatever you want. Culture, you can do whatever you want. Just pick whatever style you want.
Well, if we just don't use the word, culture, what if we just say meeting around the fire is objective?
I don't know what that means.
Well, like every culture in the world, would you agree that every culture in the world, like at one stage, probably met around the fire?
Sure.
Is that objective?
It's a fact that they did, but like, it's not a thing.
I know it's not a thing. Like, you can't point to a like law of the universe that says meet around the fire, but that's how. But how is that different from morality? It's this, like your argument before seemed to be that every society seems to follow it. I'm just trying to understand, but you said every society around the world seems to follow that. So therefore, there must be some objective truth behind it.
No, like there's lots of things people do, like eat. They eat. Is eating objective? Well, I mean, it's a thing, but it's not. There's not like a law of nature that says eat food. But there's a consistent pattern to morality. Moral progress. It's a thing. We observe it. Probably going to be consistent across all species. Probably a thing.
Yeah. Okay. Would you say like love is objective?
As a chemical in the brain, yes.
Okay. Right. So I think, yeah. So it's hard because I think we're in somewhat in agreement and disagreement at the same time. So I believe that love is a chemical in the brain, like it produces these feelings. But the concept, when I talk about love, I'm not talking about that chemical in the brain. I'm talking about this like shared, like if you talk about love for my wife, the love of my little beagle. I have this it's like this amorphous thing that I imagine in between us, this shared contract, this shared the sharing of experience. It's something not real, but it is real. Does that make sense?
I think you mean it's not an abstract object. You don't think it is actually a thing out there, independent of minds. Yeah.
So I'm still okay. So maybe we can like try and dive a little bit deeper. So when you say subjective, can you define for me subjective or objective? Like how you're using them?
Contingent on minds versus not contingent on minds.
Okay. So, and when you say across all species, can you explain to me how a spider is moral?
I think everything is moral or immoral. So I'd say that there is a law, and that law affects things with minds. And the more developed the mind is, the more susceptible it is to the law. So spiders aren't very susceptible because they don't have a developed mind or technology.
Okay. I think I'm starting to understand. So you're saying like there is this thing in the universe called
Yes, I think
morality.
there's actually a law like of physics that causes brains to develop in a specific way to develop certain moral inclinations.
Okay, interesting. So, and a spider doesn't have the ability to touch that objective thing, right? Like, it does to some extent, but it doesn't to like a full extent. It's like a human.
Yeah, humans don't have the full extent either. Just it's on a spectrum.
Yeah. And then, yeah, cool. And then, like, there could be like a more brainy alien life, hypothetically, that could have even a stronger connection to this moral. Okay, cool. I think I'm understanding that. Okay. Well, where I don't, why? So and what are the reasons that you think that? Excuse me. That this thing exists? Because you describe it as unfound, right? So by definition, we haven't found it. So
Sure.
what are the reasons that you're deducing that this thing probably exists?
Because I think that the moral consistency across aliens in the universe is likely to be found. And so what explains why do all things in the universe have the same pattern? I think it's because there's an actual thing there guiding the pattern.
Okay, so when you say, how can you make a statement like likely when it comes to aliens?
Intuition.
But is like intuition a good way to determine anything?
To build a hypothesis? Yes, intuition you can use to build a hypothesis.
Right, but then then by definition, all you'd have is like a hypothesis that's kind of
right.
unfalsifiable.
No, it's definitely falsifiable because it makes predictions. But yes, all I've ever said is I have a hypothesis. I never claimed to have like empirical evidence.
Okay, interesting. So how would you falsify your position?
Well, if we discovered aliens that don't follow the pattern of morality, that would falsify it.
What about animals that didn't follow that pattern of reality?
Sure, same thing.
So, but before when I said like the spider, you said, well, they just didn't have the brain capacity to reach that.
No, the pattern is as you gain in intellectual acuity and technology, then you start to see more things as immoral. So, or have spiders gained in intellectual acuity or technology to match humans? Because if not, then they wouldn't be at the same level as humans.
Okay.
So like if you met aliens, so if you saw aliens that were at the technological level of apes, then they would have a morality parallel to apes. If they had technology equivalent to us, they'd have morality parallel to us. If they had technology greater than us, they'd have a more accurate view of morality than us.
Okay. What? Okay. Interesting. All right. I think I'm starting to get what you're saying. But what would you say to someone who comes to you and says like, TJump, I think your entire theory is just begging the question. What do you say to that person?
Which premise is in the conclusion?
Well, the intuition part.
So begging the question is when you have a premise, your conclusion is in the premises. So
okay.
For it to be begging the question, I would have to literally just be stating my conclusion in one of the premises. So it wouldn't be begging the question. You can say that it's not supported by any evidence or not empirical evidence, which is fine. It's not. It's a hypothesis. It doesn't have to be so, but it's definitely not begging the question because the argument goes something like, if morality is objective, we will find patterns of morality in other species. We see other species, there are patterns of morality, therefore morality is objective. So it wouldn't be begging the question.
Okay. What is the most moral world in your perspective?
That could potentially exist would be the best of all possible worlds, would be a world where there's no involuntary imposition of will.
Okay. So can you please justify what you mean by involuntary imposition of will?
What?
Why should we care about imposition of will?
Why should we care? Because when we use the word moral, we refer to things, and those things can be described as like if we try to identify the core similarity between all of those things, the core similarity is involuntary impositions of will.
Yeah, but what can you please like? Why do we just like? Why does that matter?
What? So there are things that happen, like somebody punches a baby, we feel that's immoral. So we put that on a list of things. This is the immoral things. And we see someone helping an old lady across the street, we put that on a list on the moral things. And we categorize this list and see what is the similarities between these things. So this is what we call morality. These are the things we call morality. And well, what is the similarity? We try to find a principle, and that's what we are asserting is the core similarity of all the moral and immoral things. So I don't understand the question. The involuntary imposition of will is just a label for the similarity between all the things we already label as moral or immoral.
So where I think someone may say that you're begging the question is in that imposition of will, right? Because by definition, imposition, like, can you maybe define what you mean by imposition there? Because the imposition is like like, but let's look up. So I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm actually just trying to have an interesting conversation. I hope you don't feel like I'm being a dick. I'm just trying to get to the root of this so I understand. So an action or process imposing something that is something that is being opposed, right?
Well, that's so that wouldn't be the same as will. If I think what you're saying is imposition and will are the same things, therefore it's repeating itself. It's tautology. Those aren't the same thing. So you can have an imposition on will that's voluntary. So like if you ask for someone to put a weight on me, that would be an imposition on you, but it wouldn't be against your will.
So so the imposing there is what I think that does all the heavy lifting for you in this argument.
No idea what you're saying right now.
so hey man, look, I'm not big brain, right? Like you, okay? I don't have it. I'm trying to understand. Help me understand. So, but when you say imposition, right? That word impose there, right, is doing the heavy lifting.
It's just describing things. So there's punching a baby. I don't know, stealing money. What are these doing? What is the commonality of these things? Why do we label these things as immoral, or what is the minimum criteria for the things we label as immoral? Imposition is like what seems like we're labeling there. Like imposition is just a label for things we already see as immoral. It's just a common label. It's not doing any work. Just we see immoral things. Well, what's the commonality? It's imposing on will. I think that's the commonality between these things.
Yeah, but the imposing of will there, that is a negative thing. Would you agree?
Well, I think it's immoral. Yes. Well, I think I understand. So the point here is that we see things that are moral or immoral, and we already see them as bad. The word involuntary imposition of will doesn't say anything about good or bad. It's irrelevant. What it says is what is the commonality of this class of instances? What is the similarity between punching a baby, stealing from an old person, I don't know, cheating on your taxes, running a red light? What is the similarity between the things we label as immoral?
Well, they're all a great time. I'm just kidding. I said they're all a great time. I'm just kidding. Trying to lie.
True facts. Punching babies, great time. Agreed. But, so me saying the similarity between all of these things is involuntary imposition of will does absolutely zero work. It's just a descriptor. There's no moral implications there. Yeah,
but that descriptor of imposition of will, that's already in people's brains a bad thing. Right?
What I don't understand your argument here. So again,
I'm not making an argument. I'm just trying to. I guess I am, but I'm trying to provide a counter argument to what you're saying. So when you say that the best possible world is a world where people have no imposition of will, I'm asking you, okay, why is imposition of will bad? And you say, well, and then you defined. You said it was bad because we can all agree upon it, right? But I'm saying why? Why is that imposition bad?
So I have no idea what you're saying here, but it seems like what you're saying is something like the word imposition, people have a negative connotation in their mind. Therefore, this negative connotation in their mind is relevant to my argument in some way. It has literally nothing to do with anything in my argument. So it has zero value. You could label it as blue. It would make no difference. So like if all immoral actions, if the commonality was blue, then that would be the commonality. It doesn't make a difference what we call it. It's just saying, here's a bunch of actions that we see as bad. Is there a common feature Yes, it's blue. Blue is the common feature. So anything with the property of blue is likely to be immoral. That's because of all of the things we see as immoral, they have the common feature of blue. It's not doing any work to say that. It's just saying, here's a pattern, here's the core similarity in the pattern. Therefore, we can infer with induction in the future, anything that has that property is going to be a part of the pattern. So it's not doing any work. There's no work being done with that word.
Okay, well, is there another way that you could rephrase it? Rephrase the best possible world without using that word imposition?
What? I don't understand the question.
Because okay, so imposition, right, stirs up like a negative emotions, right? Would you agree?
Sure. I mean, no, impositions can be moral too. So I don't know, like imposing isn't that's inherently bad, but it seems like you're getting caught on this, like people inherently see the word one way, which is literally irrelevant. It's like you can, again, just replace it with blue. I say there's a pattern of actions that we see as immoral actions. The common feature in this pattern is blue. Anything that's blue is immoral. Therefore, the best of all possible worlds is a world with no blue. No actions that have a property of blue. There you go. That's the best of all possible worlds. You just have to fill.
No action. No. Okay. My brain is like I've got like a million variables going off, and now like the program's just crashed. So okay, well maybe a good way to talk about this is there, how would you say that? So I'm a moral anti-realist, right? Or a moral subjective. I don't really believe in morals the same way that you believe in morals, but I see them as like things that we use, like love, to. It's like I can say it's immoral,
subjective. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So, what would be your why do you think that I'm incorrect in my thought process?
Because I think that my testable predictions will be confirmed in the future, and that's it.
Okay. But couldn't you say, well, you see, I believe I have testable predictions that I can make like right now.
Cool. Like that's, if you can build a
like
different
I can make novel testable predictions right now, and
awesome.
We can see them come true.
Awesome. That would be great evidence.
Yeah, sure. So like an example I'll bring up is my friend Alyssa Whitbeck Alexander, who was the Mormon who had coffee and thought it was a bad thing.
So that's not novel. It's novel means predicting something we don't already know yet. So you have to predict something that we wouldn't expect to see in the future.
Well, when I was saying novel, sorry, I meant like unique. Like it's not normal to think coffee is bad, and from our perspective, right? Okay, let's remove the word novel. We can make prediction.
Kind of what makes something a evidence of a position is that it's a novel testable prediction. So it's a new thing we don't always, like anybody can make a testable prediction. I predict I'm going to pick my nose in 3 seconds. Bam, testable prediction made. So what makes something evidence is making a novel testable prediction about something we don't expect to see. And so if you infer a pattern that we have no other reason to infer and you get it right, that's evidence of your model. So like under your model in subjective morality, you have no reason to expect that aliens would follow the exact same moral pattern we do. That's you would not expect that under moral subjectivism. There would be no reason for this to be the case, right? But I'm saying if it's objective, then we have a reason to think they have the same pattern.
I struggle with the alien question, but I'll because I don't think we can go far with that. But let's.
So you said earlier that we have no. I forget what you said. You said we can't infer about aliens because we just don't have any information about them or something, right?
No, we can't make any assumptions at all.
So under your view, we have no reason to expect aliens would follow our pattern of morality. That's not something we would expect to see. We have no reason to infer that.
No. It would be a non sequitur to even ask that question. It'd be like I don't know, possibly not. Like it'd be we have no way of determining.
Right. So there's no evidence that they follow the pattern. There's no evidence they don't follow the pattern. We have no reason to think they do any more than they don't, or that they follow a different pattern. We have no evidence of anything. So if I predict what we're going to see, that I think they're following this pattern, and everyone we discover is going to be following this pattern. Now, my hypothesis is very specific. It says There's a specific thing we're going to see. And yours is like, well, I don't know if we're going to see that. We might not. I got nothing.
With aliens, yeah, sure, but
right.
like,
that's what.
But that's only because like I have no way to evaluate what an alien even is, right?
Right.
Like
so you have nothing, no reason to expect. Like, imagine we have 100 doors, and you had like, which door is the alien going to be behind? And you're like, I don't know, it could be any door. And I'm like, it's going to be door 92. 92 is the door, and not any, and all the other doors are wrong. No, it's this door. This is the only one that has aliens. And we open the door and it's behind 92. That's good evidence of my hypothesis. I'm probably right. You saying, well, I don't know, it could be 92, but couldn't be 92. My prediction was very specific and novel and got it right.
Oh, yeah, in this instance, 100%. But it's only with the aliens. If we move back to planet Earth for a second, like would you agree that if we had 100 children, right, born from babies, stuck them in a room, and we told them there are two doors, and we told them never open the red door ever. It is the worst thing that anyone can do. Kill someone before you see them open this red door, and you taught them this their entire lives. Do you think that they would find it immoral to open that red door?
Sure, I guess.
Okay, cool. So how...
just going back, what my point was that the reason I think I'm right and you're wrong is that I have a prediction. One of the doors, 100 doors, door 92. And if we see this, that's good evidence of my hypothesis. So, and in this case, door 92 is that they're going to follow the same pattern of morality as humans are on, the trajectory that we're on. So that's the door 92. There's a prediction about what's going to happen and what we're going to see, and the moral patterns of other alien species is going to be in the same pattern as we're on. And you're like, from your position, you don't have any reason to believe that. They may be that, they may not be that, they may be something differently. They could be any of the 100 doors. Yes.
With aliens, because I have no...
Right. And that's the point. This is a prediction. I don't have any empirical evidence. If I did, I'd have a Nobel Prize. So I'm making a prediction about the future evidence we will have eventually. And so I'm making a future prediction.
May have eventually. Yeah.
I mean,
there could be a nuclear war that kills. No, not really. No, it's not. No, it's absolutely not guaranteed. Like, I mean, there's Fermi's
paradox.
Yeah.
The stupid paradox. It's wrong.
Yeah, and it's also wrong because, like, let's do another stream one day. We'll talk about aliens, but it's also wrong because the variables. We don't know the variables. We don't know all the variables. Like, it's we're just making guesstimates with those variables. It's
what everything in science is like, we don't know what's going to happen. I predict this is going to happen. That's what you're doing. You're making a guess. It's a hypothesis.
Yeah, at stage like 0.0001, but like besides that, but
literally all scientists do every day. WIMPs, weakly interactive massive particles. I'm going to guess it's a WIMP. Dark explaining dark matter. Like, they're just making shit up. They say, I'm going to combine all the stuff we know about in such a way that makes a prediction of this.
Yeah, like I said, I agree with you at step 0.0001. But like, once you get to like, we're talking about these like high level. Look, can we just go back to my room idea with the doors, right? So like, under your framework, there's some doors in the room. There's a red door. We've told 100 kids, don't open this red door. It's a horrible thing. Their intuition would tell them it's bad to open that red door.
I have no idea how this relates to the topic. What you can manipulate people? Yes. Congratulations.
Yes. Okay. Cool. So, but would you agree that their intuition is telling them that that's wrong to open that door?
Sure. You can manipulate people's intuitions. Yes.
Okay. Cool. So you have moral intuitions, and the rest of the world have moral intuitions, right? And you're saying these moral intuitions point to some objective thing in the universe, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So why would it not be? Why can we not see the world as just one big manipulation of chance of like how we've evolved, how like fire is warm, nice to be around fire, like, so therefore, you know, people stand near fire, knife going into leg, bad, hurtsy. Like, why can't we think of like life like that? Why doesn't that make more sense?
If that's the case, and it's purely just a manipulation, then we would not expect to see that all the aliens that never came in contact would have the same manipulation, right? That's very unlikely. It's very unlikely that if it's all just a manipulation of human societies, that other cultures would have the same manipulation. They would probably have a different manipulation. Don't like the blue door, don't like the red door, don't like the tree. They would have different manipulations. So the fact that a bunch of unrelated societies who never interacted have the exact same manipulation is very unlikely. That seems like a bad hypothesis. It seems like a much better hypothesis that there is some guiding force controlling what they do or don't see as immoral if they all have the same intuition and none of them talked to one another beforehand, right?
It's like language.
Suppose there's
language evolved in different cultures all around the world, so it's like, is language an objective thing of the universe?
What if it involved in the exact same language? That would be really good evidence that there was like one universal language or something. So like, if imagine that there are thousands of cultures all on the planet that never spoke to one another, and they all developed exactly Latin. They all came up with exactly Latin. That's strange, right? You'd be like, there's something controlling that. There's something in their brain or something that's forcing them to make this language and not something else, right? So if there is like a consistent pattern that happens everywhere, independent of them talking to one another, that's not social. It's not a social construction, because if it's a social construction, then you'd expect that whatever society engineered it would be the only one doing this, and it would be transferred through interactions with this society. It wouldn't be in all of the other societies all over the world and all over whatever metric you want in the same way. That would make no sense.
To me, this just goes back to biology, right? Like why does every person in the world grow fingernails? It's like, well, because it's how we were wired. Like, are you a naturalist in regards to consciousness? Like, do you believe consciousness is just like your brain firing neurons, et cetera, et cetera?
Physicalist, yes, it's called physicalist.
Yes, physicalist, yes. Like I said, I'm new to this. I'm trying to become a philosopher, bro. TJump, I'm really trying. But I'm 5 years behind you, man. Like you said, you've been doing YouTube 5 years, so I'm trying, right? I got some comments I thought would be cool to read out. So Sebi said, hey David, I'm a subscriber of TJump. Don't be put off by his aggressive attitude today. He's in a bad mood. He's actually a sweetheart. You're doing a great job so far. Well, thank you, Sebi. Are you in a bad mood, TJump, or this is just?
I mean, maybe, I guess so. I'm getting more depressed because I got dumped like 6 months ago now. I haven't found a new Instagram model girlfriend, so I'm definitely getting more depressed as time goes on, for sure.
So are you comfortable talking about what you told me prior to
I don't care. I've never been uncomfortable. I mean, I'm uncomfortable talking about literally anything with anybody, but I don't mind.
Yeah, cool. So you mentioned before that you're a high functioning autist, or have high functioning autism, and you made a joke, but it was actually true. What was that joke?
Yeah, that my special interest is Instagram models, hot blondes.
And I was like, that's a funny joke, but that's actually like unironically what you're into. So
100%.
Hey, if we've got some hot Instagram models, and you want a new boyfriend who'd like to talk about morality, then hit him up in the comments.
Introduce me to those Australian girls. They're hot.
We can relate. We can relate. It's cool. So Tom Does Tech said, the prescription sorry, wrong one. He said punching a baby is immoral, therefore punching a baby is immoral.
No, I never said that. It wasn't the argument. So there is a pattern. If punching a baby we see as immoral. Now, if you want to, is punching a baby immoral or is it subjective or whatever? We'd say, well, if it's immoral, there's going to be a pattern with other moral things. We can make infer that if we follow this pattern to some extreme, we'll find that, like, for example, in the future, veganism is immoral. If it's the case that punching a baby is immoral and morality is objective, and we're on this trajectory of improving moral claims, then in the future, we'll claim a similar action that has the same commonality of involuntary imposition will be seen as the immoral in the future. And then we make a prediction about a future interaction that we have, and if that gets true, then it's good evidence that there's some underlying pattern. So at no point did I say punching a baby is immoral because punching a baby is immoral. I think it's perfectly fine to punch a baby.
That's going to be clipped. Sully said, why is the Fermi paradox wrong?
It's a stupid paradox, thinking that why don't we see any signs of other species of life because they've all destroyed themselves or some nonsense. It wouldn't make a difference if they destroyed themselves. It's more likely that it takes a certain amount of time to develop technologically enough to be able to produce radio waves or whatever. And so the idea that even once they do produce radio waves, radios don't go away. They're still there, floating around in space. And so we'd probably still hear them. even if they destroy themselves. It wouldn't make any sense. It's a stupid paradox. Stupid.
Do you have a like a theory that you throw up against that, or like an idea? Because I know isn't Fermi paradox like the idea that's like, where are the aliens? Like that we should see them, right? That's like the concept. Like, why don't you think we've seen aliens?
It's a good question. I have no idea.
Yeah, okay. So Tom Does Tech again. Everyone should go subscribe to Tom Does Tech. That makes awesome tech videos. He's a friend of mine. So other species have different guiding forces to humans.
No.
And not all humans have the same guiding force.
No. They're not all affected by it in the same way. Like clearly there's psychopaths, but there are blind people. Blind people can't see. Does that mean that sight is subjective? Like, no. Interactions with photons is not subjective. So like the fact that some people are affected by actually existing laws differently isn't evidence that they're not actually existing laws.
Does your theory only work with aliens? Like, for example, if we never discovered aliens, or let's say aliens did not exist.
No, you use AI too.
Okay, all right. Damn it. Okay.
And you could also use other animals evolving higher levels of consciousness. They'll also experience this. So you could use other local animals too.
Yeah, I have beef with the word consciousness, but do you still want
what beef do you have with the word?
Okay, all right. What is
this weird, strange confusion on the word conscious? It means qualia. You have qualia experience. That's consciousness. Problem solved.
Yeah, to me, it's just begging the question all over again, right? Like, so, or maybe not begging the question. Maybe, I don't want to get into if you want to have.
Tautology is saying the same thing twice. That's what a tautology is. So maybe that's what you're going for. Tautology.
Maybe teach me the words, okay? Like I have thoughts, I don't have the words, all right? But like
the word potato is a sud. It's kind of tasty when you fry it. It's a good word. Go with the word potato.
Yeah. Okay. Look. Yeah. I had this whole conversation with Shannon Q when she was on, and I was really drunk, but I think I did an okay job.
Good way to start a conversation.
Explaining. Well, yeah. Normally the guests choose the most fucking like straight. It's so funny.
Should have picked absinthe. Should have picked absinthe.
So funny. I had Michael Jones Inspiring Philosophy on. We drank Christian Apologist, straight Scotch. Boom. That's what we're drinking. I'm having a Satanist on, the head brother of the Temple of Satan where I live. He wants to have tea and scones. He's going to bake me some pumpkin scones. So I just think it's funny that the Satanist chooses tea and scones and the Christian chooses hard Scotch. I just love that. That's the environment that I've created for this this thing here. Tom just texted. Do you still want to be president?
Yes. Tell me your problem with consciousness. No evasions here. No dodging. What is this?
So okay, so I need to. It's such a long thing. So like, have you heard of the mind matter, like the mind matter problem with like Eastern philosophies, like Eastern religions and stuff? The mind matter problem.
Like from idealists, you mean, where like matter can't produce a mind, and that's why they think consciousness is fundamental?
Yeah, so like, Rupert Spira in his book, The Nature of Consciousness, he talks about the idea that matter. So we experience everything through the mind first, right? So
sure.
We experience everything through the mind first, and then we experience matter only through the mind, and so therefore matter is the assumption, not mind. Okay, so you with me there?
Yep.
Okay, so then the way, and he said that where it gets a little conspiratorial, but we're programmed.
Well, no, that's right. So that part right there is correct. If you start epistemically, if you just start from like cogito, I think therefore I am. The first thing you have is consciousness. Consciousness is the most fundamental thing. Then you experience other things. They're less fundamental to you than consciousness, but that's only if you're like a solipsist. That's all you are. Once you get beyond solipsism and say, oh, there's some difference between my imagination and reality. I imagine a unicorn, no unicorn. No touchy unicorn, no feely unicorn, no smelly unicorn, no unicorn. So there's some difference between the experiential world and your imagined world in your head. And you have to differentiate between those two. So you come up with a methodology, which is science, to try to give you an idea of which things exist outside of your head and which things exist inside of your head. And that's where we get the matter stuff from. And so this methodology that can confirm non-imaginary things is very, very good, very, very effective. And it shows there's lots of this matter stuff and not a whole lot of this consciousness stuff. And so if we want to try to establish, well, what is consciousness? Because we know it's a thing. Clearly it exists. The debate is on what stage it's at, because we know that there's like physics, and then there's chemistry, biology, brains, consciousness. That's the naturalist worldview. And the Rupert Spira, panpsychist, idealist, dualist want to say, no, consciousness is at the physics. It's before the physics. It's with the quantum field stuff. It's fundamental. And we're like, why in the hell should we believe that? Like, because the only evidence we have is that consciousness is at the brains. We don't see it do anywhere else. Like, if rocks could get up like in a Disney movie and start dancing, then that would be a great argument. It would make tons of sense to say consciousness was fundamental and that other things had consciousness outside of brains, but we never see it outside of brains. It just doesn't happen. There's no logical contradiction with a tree waving hand signals to you or talking like in a Disney movie, but it doesn't happen. And so it seems much more plausible to say that, yeah, consciousness is a product of brains, just like pineapples are a product of pineapple trees. Why? There's no reason to think pineapples are the fundamental nature of reality. If we just came to a pineapple in the middle of a forest, and we've never seen a pineapple ever in the history of ever, and we have no idea where it came from. Well, what's the best explanation? That it's a product of the other things that we see around us, or that it's a fundamental nature of reality? Like, not the fundamental nature of reality. That's never the right answer. Everybody wants to think that their pet theory is the fundamental nature of reality. It's always wrong. It's much more.
I get that, but like, so the way they would push back on that, right, and then say like, okay, consciousness is like this big white room that me and you are sitting in, right? And then I say to you, well, no, you say to me, there's bullshit. There's more than just what's inside this room, right? And so you run outside the room and you take a photo of something, like a flower, and you bring it back in and you go, look, here's a photo of something outside of the room. And I say, yes, but you're showing that to me within consciousness. So like everything that you try and explain is they can always try and just defeat it by saying, yes, but you experience that within consciousness. But so I don't agree with it, right? So this is why it's a long conversation. So
well, I think clarify, like none of that really addresses because the core criticism is where is consciousness? We both agree consciousness exists. We both agree matter is something we what?
Yeah, you see, this is what I'm getting to, right? So okay,
this is gonna fucking exist.
Look, maybe we needed hard liquor for this, all right? Because this is gonna. So okay, hear me out, right? This is where I kind of call bullshit, right? So, and I look, I know I'm gonna get roasted for this because I know it's not thought out really well. I got the Blackwell's like companion to consciousness up there. I'm too scared to open it up yet, but this is where I'm going, right? So I
got a book. I'm afraid to open it.
Yeah, oh fucking hell, it's big, man. Like so so I got friends who are like that, right? They're mine first, right? They're relatives are mine first, and they'll always point back to the being in the room. And I'm like, okay, well, what's kind of bullshit about that is this unfalsifiable claim, right? But then I'm kind of appealing to like science, which is part of like the natural world, which is part, like I'm already presupposing naturalism. Well, so the way I do
unfalsifiable claims aren't a problem. You can make those in science. They're not actually bad. There's other methodologies they're fine. But I want just clarification. When you say consciousness, or you don't agree consciousness exists.
I'm getting there. Okay. So what I do as a pushback to him is I say, okay, I'm just going to say consciousness is bullshit. And then he goes, what do you mean? And I go, well, I just believe that we have neurons firing in our brains and they give the illusion of consciousness, right? The illusion of being agents of thinking or whatever, but it's just bullshit. It's a word like love. It doesn't actually exist, right?
I don't think that works. So like,
okay. It probably doesn't. Look, I'm just it probably doesn't. But
when I say consciousness, what I mean is I have a direct experience of stuff. Like I see a TV, I see a camera. Now this experience I'm having exists. It may just be a product of neurons. That's totally fine. I'm a physicalist. I think it's just a product of neurons, but that experience is clearly an existing thing. Like I'm clearly experiencing a camera.
Well, I'm just being, you see, this is where, okay, so you know how like someone will say consciousness is like is like the opposite of what it's like to be a rock, right? That's what some like. Have you heard that frame?
Yes, it's a very silly saying, but yes.
Yeah, and I go, no. I said, what it's like to be a rock is what it's like to be a rock. Rocks don't have a what is like, right? So
Yeah.
so whatever the experiencing part is something that I think happens, but I don't think it's a real thing. Like I don't think it's an amorphous, like it's naturally it's an amorphous
if it happens
thing.
So it happens, you agree it happens, right?
Yeah. I kind of have to. I have to because of the proper basic beliefs, like right at the foundation of like.
So if it happens, does it exist? It
exists, but not in the way that yes, it exists. You defeated the argument. You defeated the argument. Yeah, but it's unjustified.
That's all consciousness means, is that there is this experience we're having, and it doesn't mean it's real. It could be a combination of things in your brain. It could be, if it's just an illusion, that's fine too. But it's real. The sense we're having is itself a real thing that exists in reality somewhere. It's somewhere in reality, because if it wasn't, then it couldn't happen. So the fact that it happens means it's in reality in some sense. But what's causing it is the unknown. We don't know what's causing it. We don't know what's made of. That part's irrelevant. But we know that that sense does have to exist in reality because we're having it.
Yeah, with this, that's what I'd say. I guess I'm just pushing it because that's what I don't like. I don't like when people say, "Where do you think consciousness comes from?" And then I just say, like, "Fuck your consciousness." I think there's just neurons firing in our brain, right? And then, like, because I think what happens when someone starts saying consciousness is it's like when panpsychists start using the word like quantum. They start like misrepresenting what it actually means. They start thinking that there's more there than it actually is. They go, so you go, oh, everything's connected, bro. Like, no, okay. Like if you're talking about quantum physics, you're talking about maths. You're not talking about anything else, right? You're talking about like you need to be writing down formulas, not like everything's connected. So that's the issue I have with the word consciousness, because I think, yes, consciousness agrees. Me and you can understand consciousness, but when we start talking to people who are like, well, no, consciousness clearly exists and we don't know where it comes from, it's like, no, fuck you. Like I push back on that and say, no, it's just neurons firing.
Yeah, so I definitely agree that there are many people who put in lots of baggage into the word to include things that aren't actually included. So they try to like add in baggage to the word to justify positions that are more than what the word actually means. So like this happens all the time when you talk about solipsism versus other words. You try to include the external world in your personal experience, and it doesn't work. So I agree that there are things where people try to include more than they should by using the word, and that's wrong of them. But I don't think saying consciousness doesn't exist is the correct way to address that. I think it'd be more like, what do you mean by consciousness? You ask them.
Look, yeah, I'm just being sassy.
So, but for me, I think that we can clearly, like, if somebody was murdered in front of you and you want to, who killed them, that's a fair question to ask. You don't need to ask, well, was there really a murder? Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so the same thing applies to consciousness. We know that we have experience. Experience is a thing. I'm having it right now. And so it's a fair question to ask, what is causing that experience? Where does it come from? Whatever. It isn't a fair question to say, but is there really an experience? So if you're the one having the experience, it's logically impossible for you to not have the experience because you're having it. It's literally a contradiction.
Yeah,
A equals
I agree.
A.
I agree with that. That's why look, I'm too scared. Like I told you, I'm too scared to open that book. I haven't formalized. I'm not ready to start formalizing like my ideas of consciousness in a book yet. I just have had pushback with the Eastern thought. Well, I try and push back on the Eastern thought a little bit because I just think it doesn't answer any of the questions properly. But going right back to morality, I want to give you some questions from my wife. Okay. Now I sat there and we had the morning coffee this morning.
No, you should not have an open relationship.
No. What about with Instagram models? Right? What about what if
it's okay for me, but not for you?
Oh, okay. No, I don't.
It's kind of like what's it? Speed stoplights and stop signs. Like for me, they're optional. For you, you need to obey.
Yeah. Okay. Well, don't drink and drive, and don't speak responsible. So, but like what I mean is, so we're two like geniuses. Like we're both like on Einstein level smart, right? But there are people like my wife. That's a fucking horrible joke. But
clip that. I'm using as a blackmail.
to there are people who don't think about these things a lot, right? And they don't think about morality. So I'm just going to throw some like simple questions at you. So like when I said to her this morning, or to people who don't think about this a lot, interviewing TJump, he believes in objective morality, that morality is the same, like that there is an objective like law to the universe. First thing is, what about in countries where women have to cover up, or what about in what about people who don't believe the same things?
They're immoral.
They're what?
They're immoral. It's like they're bad. They're doing bad things.
Okay, so how do we determine? But they think it's moral, right? Would you agree that they think it's moral?
Most of them no, but in some cases, yes. I'd say that they're wrong. So it's like many people can be wrong about things. There are objective facts, and if there's an objective fact, and some people could be wrong about that objective fact. There are people who believe the world is flat, so they're wrong. And so if there is a law of morality, if the law was the most powerful law in the universe and forced everyone to obey, then no one can disagree. If it's not the most powerful law in the universe, and other combinations of laws of physics can subvert it, then the fact that some people would disagree makes perfect sense. It's perfectly fine for people to disagree, because there's other laws that can cause other kinds of beliefs that aren't in alignment with this law. And so the fact that there's disagreement or people don't disagree is only a problem if the law was the most powerful thing in the universe and there was literally no way to not be affected by it more than any other law. But since I don't think it's like the strong force of the universe, it's not going to necessarily have 100% effects on all beings, or the same effect on all beings. But even in those countries, we still see moral progress. Saudi Arabia made it legal for women to drive recently, past 5-10 years.
Sick. But so how does someone, like pragmatically now, how does someone determine what's right and wrong?
Pragmatically?
Because this is all fun to like talk about like morality as an objective thing, but like how does someone determine, like let's say there's two buttons in a room and they both do something differently. How does someone determine what's the right thing and what's the wrong thing to do?
Well, so like if you believe in objective morality, you could use that as a standard to assess which one's right or wrong. If you kind of need a standard to ask the question, what is pragmatically best?
Yeah, so let's go back to the vegan thing then. So what's wrong with killing a sentient creature?
I think it's an involuntary imposition of will.
Well, I'm just going to ask you again, what's wrong with that?
I think that is wrongness. I think that is a description of the essence of wrongness.
But what if position against my will to not eat bacon?
So imposition of will, technical language time, only applies to yourself and your property. And so if the pig is conscious, its body is its property. And so your will to violate its property rights is an imposition on a different will. And so at any given instance, if there's two different wills, then both wills have to be in consent for it to be not an involuntary imposition of will. So you can't say, if I will to punch you in the face, it's immoral for me not to be able to punch you in the face, because there's two wills in that situation. And so for it to be an involuntary imposition, all wills in the situation would have to consent.
Okay. So why aren't you vegan?
Because I like being immoral. It makes me feel good.
Okay. So to me, I don't know how that works. Can you explain to me how that works? Like why, like, so if you think something is immoral, like why cannot someone else do something that's greatly immoral and then just like what, how do we
could say the exact same thing? They could say, why do you murder people? Because I enjoy murdering people. Like you could give the exact same response. There's no non-symmetry there. The symmetry is the exact same.
So why have we outlawed murder, but we haven't outlawed killing pigs?
Because we haven't gotten to the technological stage where it's so unnecessary that society as a whole has grown to the point where they see it as immoral. So if the vast majority of people saw it as immoral, we would make it illegal.
You see, to me, this reeks, like I can't even see because of how fucking bad this reeks of subjectivism. That people like the taste of bacon, so they're willing to turn a blind eye to their morals, where they yeah. So So, but you're saying that no, like people know it's immoral, and it's only applicable to change it when we get to technologically advanced enough, right?
Well, so I mean, our subjective desires are subjective. So if you're asking why do I do something or why do they do something, it's going to be subjective. It has to be subjective. Like they're doing it because of subjective whatever is affecting them. If morality is objective, that's completely independent of whatever people subjectively choose to do. So it's just like saying, what is the distance to the moon? It's 255,000 miles. But what if someone wants to, like, that's their subjective opinion. They can do whatever they want. They're just going to be wrong. That's fine. So asking about motivations of individuals is going to be subjective necessarily, but whether or not their actions are in correspondence to reality is completely independent of whether they subjectively choose to do whatever.
So how does, okay. All right. So I'm a bit confused with so the way I understand that we organize society is we decide what's right and wrong as a society, and then we organize laws and rules.
Yeah, that's all subjective. All subjective.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, then we may agree. See, this is what I mean. We may possibly agree. I'm not fully bought in on your objective alien, universal truth thing, but at least at the pragmatic level, it seems that we agree that morality is just subjective, right?
Yeah, pragmatically, by definition.
Well, okay, solved. Problem solved. We're in agreement when it comes to that. But I just don't know how do you. I just you just said it you just said exactly what I was thinking. I just think morality is just an amorphous thing that we use, a tool that we use, right?
Right. So pragmatic morality, as in what we do to make societies work, is subjective. It's contingent on what we need to do in society to make survival a thing. And that's completely different from objective morality. So if we were to adopt objective morality right now, and no one ever ate any living thing, lots of people would die, especially in poor nations. And so that would be bad. That would be not pragmatic. It'd be very unpragmatic to adopt objective morality. Objective morality would kill a lot of people, because objective morality would be give all your possessions to the poor because they need it more than you. That would be a moral thing to do. And so adopting objective morality would not at all be pragmatic. It would be the opposite of pragmatic. It would be suicidal. And so there's clearly a difference between pragmatic morality, which is what benefits society, and objective morality, which is what is objectively the correct thing to do for benefiting people's wills or whatever. And those are two completely separate questions. Pragmatic is subjective. It's just, here's what we can do.
When do you think it will be? When do you think it? You will go vegan? What technological level?
When we can generate a better, tastier thing, easier and cheaper than bacon. So if we can make artificial bacon and it tastes better than bacon, and it's cheaper, I'll just buy the better tasting bacon.
What about? Have you tried any of do you eat beef?
Yes. I eat beef.
Have you tried any of the Beyond Burgers, Impossible Burgers, or anything like that?
Yes, they've gotten a lot better recently. I definitely think that's the case. I tried them when they first came out, and they tasted like just dirt. It was disgusting. Now they're doing a lot better at tasting edible, but still not the best, and they're more expensive too.
Okay, cool. So if they became are they at a level there where they're tasty enough? If they were the same price, would it be for you? Would you stop eating beef burgers?
If they tasted the same, I probably wouldn't care. I'd probably be ambivalent, agnostic. So I'd probably just try one day and try the next day. And so I would go back and forth. I could only stop eating meat if they were objectively better, and this is just a better thing to buy on the menu. Why don't I get tater tots? Because there's cheese fries, and cheese fries are objectively better than tater tots, and that's why I don't get tater tots. And so the same thing would apply to Beyond Burgers. If they just objectively taste better, I'm going to get the thing that objectively tastes better.
Would you say, I'm going to throw a hypothetical at you, right? If you say, let's say that beef
babies were made of bacon and they tasted good, it would be tough. It would be tough.
Yeah, I almost went there, but let's say you're on the right track of where I'm hypothetical's going. But let's say there's a beef burger, right? And let's say it's double as good as the Beyond Burger, Impossible Burger. Would you say that's pretty it's the best beef burger is probably double as good as an Impossible Burger? Would you agree to that? Just Just like,
hypothetically, sure. Let's go.
yeah,
Let's just do it
hypothetically.
for the
Okay,
sake of the
cool.
argument. For the sake of the
Yeah,
argument.
cool. For the sake of the argument. Okay. Now let's say there was a beef burger, but it was like beef 2.0. Okay. But the way they got this beef to be, and this beef burger was double as good as a regular beef burger, right? But the way they got the beef to be so good is they tenderized the meat while it's still alive. So what they did is they got a baseball bat and just for fucking months just beat the shit out of this cow, right? What would be the moral? Would you get beef 2.0?
Yes, I would not give a shit. So I have autism, so I don't feel empathy for anything. So I don't care how much you beat the cow. If it's legal, I'm getting my beef burger if it tastes good.
Okay, cool. Let's say this is beef, this beef 3.0, right? And they tenderize the beef, right, with baseball bats, but then they're also punching a baby in the face on top of it, and the tears soak into the meat, right? Are you getting that beef?
Hey,
the babies don't die. Okay, so you're choosing beef 3.0 rather than beef 2.0.
So I would say that my decision would be based on my like social, how I would be seen socially in that instance. If society didn't care, I'd be like, beef 3.0, don't give a crap. In our current society, I'd say that it would be seen as unpleasant. So pragmatically, it's a bad decision. Based on pragmatic morality, I'd probably say no, not beef 3.0.
Okay.
Objectively, they're all immoral. So
let's say like it was a vacuum, no one would find out about it.
No one would find out about it. I'm still, because of the society, the pragmatic thing. I'm like, probably not, but I'm a foodie, so
let's say it's
I want to taste it. I want to try it. I want to try it.
Okay. Let's say there's beef 5.0, right? And it's not just babies being punched in the face, but it's also your family being punched in the face. Your mom, your dad.
Dude, you'd have to pay me not to eat it. Oh my god.
Okay, so like you can see where I'm going though. Like it's interesting, right? Because you obviously have high functioning autism, so you probably think differently to most people. But most people would say, like, no, like at beef 2.0, they'd say, no, that's fucking immoral to tenderize an animal while it's still alive. They would say that's immoral.
Well, that's
but the problem
literally
is
what happens.
Well, no, not what I'm talking, like baseball bats, like beating shit out of it for months. They're killed very badly.
That's what happens to pigs. Like that happens in their torture chambers all the time. So that's the thing that happens.
Yeah, well, everyone in the comments is going to disagree with you, and they'll be wrong. But they are killed horribly. If anyone wants to check out this video, I'll link in the description, which is the video I talk about how free-ranged, beautiful piggies who get belly rubs die, and they get pretty.
But yeah, they are like tortured during life.
Like, yeah, depending. Like some farms, like even it doesn't matter. Like most farms, yes, factory farms, it's fucked. They're tortured, right? But like they're like, even if we had the most, like even if we had like Farmer Bob, and Farmer Bob like let the pig sleep on his couch and he rubbed their belly every night and gave him little kisses on the forehead, like it did everything. Still the way they killed at the slaughterhouse is fucking horrible.
Yeah, they're thrashing. Like to make eating meat moral, you'd have to wait for them to die of natural causes, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah, I'd have no problem with that. In fact, I would even argue, and this is where I had an animal rights activist on, I would even argue that it would be immoral not to eat a creature that's died of old age, because then you're choosing to create more waste in the world. The trucks that delivered your veggie burgers hit more bugs on the way. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like the more moral thing to do would be to eat that carcass, right? So I imagine you also.
I said that one amoral. I'd put that on amoral.
Yeah,
because you're not obligated to eat them. Like it's like.
Oh, actually, no. I would say if you're going to follow the vegans arguments, like that if you're going to subscribe to vegan arguments that we shouldn't eat animals and all that, like we're going to subscribe. If they want to be consistent, for them they would have to eat their dead dog, their dead pig, their dead whatever. They'd have to eat to be morally consistent. And also
for vegans to be consistent with the arguments they make, that's definitely true.
And also the same thing was like if you've eaten your calorie limit for the day and you dare get that slice of vegan cheesecake, you're a fucking sick pig. How dare you take, like, you didn't need that food, and there were bugs that were killed, there were rodents that were killed in the thing, there was land that was destroyed, habitats, to make that vegan cheesecake for you. Immoral, like just for your taste pleasure. Like you can make the same arguments, and that's the issues I have with veganism.
There's the one that's like, in order to make the plants you have to kill rodents, to clean the land, and that's also immoral.
But like I said, I hate vegans, but I kind of am one. So like it's annoying though, because so just to give the vegan counter to that is, well, yes, but we feed the most amount of food from plants we feed to livestock, and that's why even if you were to just eat plants, you're still killing less of those rodents and pigs, things. Anyway, let's wrap this up with a few last questions. So I got some juicy ones, right? Not juicy. I asked them to almost every person, but I
one second. I got one from a few from my super chat. I'll take one if you don't mind right now.
Yeah, go for it.
To pin it. Don Fullman, big supporter of the channel. Appreciate him. Since morality is an objective trait in the universe, could morals evolve to fit the environment the subjective finds themselves in? Does morality evolve? It's possible. If morality is an objective law of physics, laws of physics do change, so it's possible they change. Yes.
Cool. Any more?
I do, but you can go for yours, because the reason I wanted to do that one is because I forgot to pin it, and so if I unpinned it, I would lose it and I wouldn't be able to remember it.
Oh yeah, that's cool. You can read more if you want.
Oh sure, I got.
If there's any good ones, yeah.
I do. 60-second skeptic. Can we use your model of objective morality on trickier balancing act type issues, thinking like positive versus negative freedoms, threatening speech or freedom of speech? If so, can you give a quick example? Yes. So legalization of weed, 100% moral to legalize weed. There's no reason to justify its immorality. Abortion is a tricky issue, because I think that if the baby is conscious, it is immoral to kill it, but it's justified as self-defense. That's a tricky issue. So I think the Republicans are right that it is immoral to kill a baby, but it's justified because it's self-defense. So yes, you can use this to be trickier things. Freedom of speech, 100% freedom of speech of all words. I don't care. All words should be freedom of speech.
Quick question on that one. What if it's like,
except those words? You don't get to speak.
like directions on like how to cause harm to someone.
I think that all words should be legal, but because people are influenced by those words, we have to have pragmatic limitations. And so I think that since people are stupid and listen to the words, we have pragmatic limitations, but you should be allowed to say whatever you want ever, because words don't literally hurt people directly.
Interesting.
And then from Javer Jara, do you agree with a possible answer to the "where are aliens" question? According to Neil deGrasse Tyson, maybe aliens already came and they didn't find any intelligent life here. I don't think so. I think a more plausible answer is that if my model is true, which I think it is, I think their understanding of morality is so higher evolved than us that we do so many immoral things, they don't really want to interact with us, at least not yet. And so they see our society and see us doing so many terrible things that they wouldn't want to interact with us yet. That would be a more plausible solution. I don't know. What do you think, David? Does that sound reasonable, that aliens are so much more morally attuned to us that the way you see people who eat meat, the aliens see us because we're just so immoral?
I think that I just have beef with the alien thing, man. I think we're just assuming too much to even be able to have a conversation about it. But like, look, man, let's pretend that we're both like smoking a big doobie, sitting around a fire. Yeah, I'll talk about it. Like I talk about maybe the ghosts are real or something, right? I don't believe it, but cool. Yeah, I think they might look at us like, I think if anything, okay, like hang on, let me just take the okay, I reckon what's happening is there's like we have to reach some level of consciousness or some level of intelligence or some level of technological, would be seen like pandas in the wild. Like you can't go up to a panda and just start like playing with it or whatever. Or certain tribes in there are certain tribes in
Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, where you can't go to them because you'll give them diseases and stuff. I think that maybe people on Earth are viewed like that from alien life.
Yeah, I disagree with the pandas thing though. I think it's totally legit to go up and just hug a panda.
Oh, I'll do it. I just don't think you're allowed to.
Slight health risk of eaten by bear. Grimlock says, I am also high function autism. I gave up all animal products nearly 7 years ago overnight with no excuse. Good for you. I don't have an excuse. I just granted some moral and like cheese and bacon.
Someone in your comments said David is trying to take advantage of Tom's autism. I don't know what that means.
If it gives me hot blondes, that's worth it. Introduce me to those Australian ladies. I'll take it.
Okay. Just for your audience who is watching as well, Deep Drinks Podcast is a platform where I invite guests on. They choose their drink of choice. Today we had cherry Pepsi. Usually it's alcohol, and we drink it and have deep conversations, deep drinks. And we're also trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you want to subscribe to this channel, go for it, because when we get to 1,000, I'm doing a charity live stream, 6 hours, where we'll be doing some fun stuff. I might even watch... I'll see if I can get away with it, but I think I can. I might even watch the old cowboy Kenneth Copeland movies. Who doesn't want to watch that with me, right? Like, do you remember those things? Treasure on Eagle Mountain, Covenant, Rider. Oh man, I bought the
Copeland,
DVDs.
like the apologist guy was.
No, not the apologist. He's like a big time Texan preacher. He's the one who's like COVID-19, blowing away COVID-19. That dude. Yeah, he had cowboy movies back in the day, and we're gonna watch it. We'll see. I'll have to see if I'm not going to get copyright strike. I don't think I am, because I uploaded it and it didn't get marked. But yeah, for your audience that are watching, come subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it, and get us over that 1,000 mark. But last few questions I've got for you, TJump, is what is the most plausibly true religious worldview that you don't subscribe to?
Probably Hinduism is the one I say the most. Hinduism has the most accurate predictions of the age of the Earth, sort of. They predict the age of the Earth was 4.3 billion years old. It's 4.5, so that's close-ish. Unfortunately, they think we're only like halfway through that, so it's only like 2 billion years ago. Thank you for Logic for pointing that out. He did the research on that one. But they're the closest one that has real evidence, and so they're the one that's most likely to be correct. I think Jainism has the most moral system. They're most likely to be right on morality. So those would probably be the top two: Hinduism, Jainism.
Is the okay? I wanted to look into that, actually, because is that 4.3 billion? Is that like a new thing that they've read into old text, or is that something that, like,
literally legit exact numbers from the 6,000-year-old text? They give years. They're not like, it's not like Christianity where you have to like ambiguate it. It's like, no, it says this many human years is this many God years. It's this many God years. They're done.
Damn. Wow. Okay, that's crazy. This is a good one. What, if anything, would change your mind? And I'm going to ask that twice: on morality, and secondly, on the God belief.
Evidence, novel testable predictions. So like in the case of morality, if we discover aliens and they have like eat babies morality, that would prove my morality wrong. God belief, same thing, novel testable predictions. If I die and go to heaven and see God, that's pretty good evidence that God is real. Or if revelation happens and like Christians start magically disappearing, like poofing out of existence, like that's interesting evidence. So any kind of novel testable predictions.
Can you imagine being on Earth though without Christians? What your channel would plummet in views, because like who would you have to argue with except for maybe, I don't know, we start Mormons? I don't know. Yeah,
there are other religions that still exist.
Yeah. Are there? No. Yeah. Okay. And this is a bonus question I like to ask people. If you could choose an afterlife, and then as soon as you imagine this afterlife, I imagine you don't believe in afterlives, but if you could choose this afterlife and it immediately became true, what afterlife would you choose?
The best of all possible worlds. That's the best one.
Okay, let's take them just from like popular religions. So like, do you want to be reincarnated? Do you want to have like heaven, like the traditional Christian heaven? Do you like what Buddhists think? Like, you got to choose a religious afterlife. I had someone once mention Egyptian afterlife.
I don't know. Like most of them, I think are pretty bad. Like the one that's closest to the best of all possible worlds is my answer, and I just have to figure out which one that is to be able to answer the question.
Yeah. What about if you went? I don't know. That's going to be too offensive. Actually, I'm not going to say that. But it's going to make a crack about Instagram models in heaven getting a certain amount of them or something. Anyway, thank you so much, TJump, for coming on to Deep Drinks Podcast. Is there any last words you have before we leave?
Potato.
Potato. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on. Make sure everyone to go subscribe to youtube.com/deepdrinks. I'd super appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below that you come here, and I'll definitely react. And also, I'll see you guys next time. See you later.